The tow strap was already biting into the frame when the red and blue washed over my driveway, and the HOA president smiled like she'd finally broken me. I kept my voice low because men like me don't get to be loud without paying for it. And I said, "Touch that bike, and I'll read your forged bylaw into the record with the state attorney, listening on speaker." And for a second, the only sound on our quiet street was the ratchet clicking and my heartbeat trying to jump out of my neck. That was the moment I learned the difference between rules and rulers, yeah. That happened. I'm Ethan Cole, Navy vet heating tech, the guy who waves first and fixes your furnace on a Sunday. If the baby's cold, I bought into Cedar Lake Reserve for the lake path, the snowplow schedule, the promise of peace. My weekend therapy is a 2013 Road King. I keep like a church pew, chrome wiped with an old cap toffee, going cold on the workbench because I get lost in the ritual. If you saw me in the garage, you'd think neighbor, not threat. You know what I mean. It started at 6:03 a.m. on a Tuesday with a knock that wasn't a knock, so much as a warning shot. I opened the door in socks to find Marla Patterson with a clipboard, the phone already recording that smile that says she rehearses in the mirror. "Mr. Cole," she said, "here's a $500 fine. Motorcycle is a visual nuisance in violation of Section 6 HOA, vehicle visibility and nuisance." I looked at the page, then at her, and said, "Plain as a weather report, we don't have a Section 6. 12. "We do now," she answered. "Emergency amendment last night. She took 3 fast photos to catch my plate, handed a 24-hour removal notice like it was a cupcake, and turned on her heel." I shut the door and stood there with the paper in my hand, feeling that old switch flip in my chest. The one that says, "Breathe. Count, move with purpose." By dinner, a neon orange sticker bloomed on my garage. Final warning, removal or seizure. And 20 minutes after that, the listserv pinged with a post from Community Care, which is a tone people pick when they're lying, reminding everyone that combustion-based recreational vehicles endanger children at play. Please comply with 6.12. There was even a zoomed photo from my curb, folks. I've helped for years, suddenly had a lot to look at when they walked their dogs. A dad I carried a dead water heater for pulled his kid closer when they passed. That one burned. Wednesday morning, I learned what punishment looks like when small power centralizes my pool. Fob died. My front sprinklers were suspended for safety repairs. A fresh notice slid under my door. $250 per day, the office said. Board Resolution 22B authorizes maintenance holds during safety violations. The admin voice sounded printed. I pulled 22B and found. It was about trash cans. When I said that the silence wasn't confusion, it was coordination. At 4:11 that afternoon, the garage rolled up, and in walked a 17-year-old with a volunteer badge that looked home-printed. Her, he said, steady, like a rehearsed monologue, per 6. 12. Subsections D. I'm here to collect the motorcycle keys for transfer to approved HOA storage, I said, not unkind. But firm, kid. The only thing you're collecting is a trespass warning. He didn't blink. Refusal will be documented as non-cooperation. Then on his way out, he dragged a little key across my leather seat. While staring me down, a 2-inch scratch that wasn't about damage, it was about measuring me. I felt the heat come up, and I put it back down and handed him the paper I'd already written. "You are trespassing." He shrugged, like a boy who's been told he's a man, and walked, and I got busy. 4 4K cameras. Motion floods that turn midnight to noon, a Ring doorbell. Big gray signs. Audio and video recording in progress. because sometimes warning is mercy. I archived the HOA site and pulled cached pages because lies hate timestamps. The shiny new 612 showed author M. Patterson at Cedar Lake Reserve. Org mail to M. Patterson at cedarlakereserve.org, created Tuesday, 10:03 p.m. A solid 4 hours after I was cited for violating it, I printed that properties box big enough to read across a room and slid it into a sleeve. I brewed coffee at 9 and labeled a folder facts, because if you're going to fight a story, you bring receipts, not adjectives. That night, a next-door account called Lake Mom's Safe posted a shaky clip of a bike revving at 1 a.m. Unstable veteran kids crying, trying to work with him. My camera had already caught the same kid from my garage, Dylan Marla's son, framing that exact angle at 5:48 p.m., texting and smirking. He wasn't filming noise, he was filming narrative. And once you see that trick, you never unsee it. The next morning, a cruiser with a community liaison decal slid in like it belonged. Officer Kevin Dorsey stepped out with friendly shoulders and a voice that wanted to be a handshake. We did the script. I'm sure you're a good guy, just trying to keep the peace. Noise ordinances are tricky. Could you work with the HOA on Section 612? And my ears pricked because I hadn't said the number when a cop quotes the other team's playbook. You're not in a dispute. You're in theater. Thursday, 05 a.m., a tow truck backed into my driveway. Wrong way. Marla in sunglasses and power posture. Phone up like a badge. Emergency hazard mitigation, she said for the camera. I looked the driver in the eye and kept my tone. Even, you are on private property without required notice. If you hook that bike, you're part of a theft. This driveway is recorded. He looked at her. Looked at me. Did the math men do when a paycheck meets a conscience, ma'am? I'm going to need written authorization and signage, he said. She hissed in that tight way. And snapped. We'll handle it at the compliance hearing. Fine by me. Bullies run on two fuels, your fear and your isolation, and the second one went empty when my across-the-street neighbor crossed over with an accordion folder pressed to her chest. I'm Renee Carter, civil litigator, she said in a voice that registers as ally. Not spectacle. I like my neighbors safe and my bylaws recorded, bay I. She laid 3 cards face up. Certified CCNRs from the county recorder with no. 12. Amendment on file and email to Officer Dorsey that said if we keep it administrative, no judge, no discovery. We can handle it clean, and a tiny recorder with Marla's voice coaching a volunteer to backdate minutes. Just right, last month. People forget we can file a TRO, Renee said. Criminal complaint for forgery and attempted conversion, and we notify the HOA's insurance carrier. That the president created an uncovered loss through fraud. Their lawyer will do half our work to save coverage. I said, and that's a lot for a bike, she said. It's not about the bike. It's about a system that claims government power when it wants obedience and private club status, when it wants to dodge rights. Pick one, and I nodded. Because somewhere in my ribs, something old and sharp clicked back into place. Saturday, 9 a.m., the clubhouse smelled like lemon cleaner, and bland consensus neighbors packed the room. Because people love process until they're being processed. Dylan sat front row with a sling. No one had seen before. Marla opened like a CEO. 612 is clear. She said minutes here. Complaints here. A resident refusing to comply. Safety hazard for children. She lifted a stack with staples bent, like they'd already lost when they handed me the floor. I didn't thank them. I stood and spoke like a tech, explaining a repair for the record. I'm entering certified CCNRs with no recorded amendment, a PDF properties sheet showing 6.12 was created. Tuesday, 10:03 p.m. by M. Patterson, 4 hours after I was cited, in an audio file of the president instructing a volunteer to backdate minutes, and a printed email from Officer Dorsey about keeping this administrative to avoid a judge, and discovery. The room shifted on that word, discovery. Like a window cracked. The treasurer whispered we never voted on 6/12. The secretary's chair scraped back an inch like a conscience. Clearing its throat, Marla tried to bulldoze. You're taking this out of context. Your temper has been a concern. Multiple neighbors reported destabilizing behavior. I let that hang long enough that people had to look at me. Not her. I fix heaters for half of you. I said the last time I revved after 7 p.m. was June. 7 seconds stuck. Fuel pump if you're going to build fear. Check your timestamps, then I tapped my phone and said, before we continue. I'd like one person to listen, the speaker crackled. Then settled, this is Jordan Hale, Assistant. Attorney General Consumer Protection, Patterson. Please remain in the room, and you can always tell who's fine and who's cooked. By what happens to their chin. When power walks in, Marla's chin came forward, then bobbed, like it had questions it couldn't answer. You think a little recording scares me, she said, high and tight. I said, the insurance carrier does. They don't indemnify fraud. You made it personal and then official, and those two lines just crossed. Two plain suits, stepped in with a uniform who wasn't Dorsey Ms. Patterson. You're under arrest for forgery, attempted conversion insurance fraud. Please stand, somebody gasped. Dylan's phone hit the carpet with a soft thud. Dorsey was asked to come along for questions related to evading judicial oversight. He looked at the door, then at the speaker, then at the floor, like all three had the same answer. No one cheered. Cedar Lake isn't built for cheering. It exhaled the tow strap in the truck bed out front. Shone like nothing had ever happened. The cuffs clicked. And I'm not going to pretty it up. The sound was satisfying. Not triumph, just weight returning to the right shelf. 2 hours later, a neighbor who's used my ladder twice walked past like he was stepping on glass. No wave. That night, I sat in the garage and looked at the little scratch Dylan left. Faint enough to buff, I decided to leave it. Not as a wound, but a measuring line. Renee says there will be resignations and trainings and motions that grind like an old mill. Jordan's office will file things. A judge will say. Sentences that move how Cedar Lake behaves in daylight. Maybe the next morning. The neighbor's kid waved first. Uncoached 2 fingers, like he meant it. I waved back, rolled the bike forward, snugged across. Brace a quarter turn and listen to the engine catch, soft, not loud. Just a quiet agreement. We run you steer. We'll take you where you were going before the story got weird. Here's what I know. Now policies aren't laws. Minutes aren't a time machine. Metadata is a mirror. Insurance loves order. More than it loves presidents. If you want to beat a story, bring timestamps, not adjectives. And one more thing that sticks with me. Dylan is 17. What he did was wrong. And still he learned the shape of power from the woman in cuffs. So I'll hand you the same question I keep turning over in my hands like a coin. Do I press charges against the kid, Or let the scratch be the line he steps over once and learns from forever? Does a police liaison? Who reads a script written by a liar? Lose a badge, a pension, or just his post? If HOAs want the authority of government, should they carry the responsibilities too? Real transparency, real consequences? Or are we fine with private clubs that can shut off your sprinklers because your life looks messy from the sidewalk? Tell me what you think. Who was right? Who was wrong? Whether HOAs protect communities or just hide bullies behind clipboards? Drop your take in the comments. Share your own story. If you've lived this kind of fight, like if this helped you, breathe a little easier. Subscribe. If you want more true stories, told the way they happened, and tell me where the line is between keeping order and keeping folks in their place. Because wherever you draw it, that's the neighborhood we're building together.